gonna be a stinker in this video. Mama? Mama Elmo. Elmo. Hi guys, it's me, and I wanted to go ahead and make, hi honey. I wanted to go ahead and make a quick video just explaining my labor and delivery with Desiree. Some of you guys have asked me, and I am sure it would be helpful to kind of know how my labor and delivery went with her so that you can kind of compare it when you guys follow along with my labor and delivery this time. So I don't have her baby book in front of me, which is where I wrote down exact days and times of everything and exact measurements and all that stuff. I don't have that in front of me, so I'm not doing like a technical labor and delivery experience, but just like kind of how it went and how everything was. Say hi. Say hi, baby. Say hi. Mama. Say Elmo. Elmo. Good girl. So like I was saying, I'm not going to do a complete official labor and delivery. It's just going to be the general idea of how my labor went with her. And she's going to be playing with toys right next to me. So if you hear noises or this video gets interrupted a lot, that is why. But I'll try to make this as fast as possible. It's kind of hard to make a video with her around sometimes. But anyways, let's get to it. So I'll start at 32 weeks. Up until then, everything had gone pretty normally with my pregnancy. I did have gestational diabetes, but pretty mild and very under control. So at 32 weeks, I was at home one day and I started feeling some tightening and a little pressure in my, lower stomach and even my pelvic region. And it felt different than my Braxton Hicks contractions had felt before. So I decided, after I debated it back and forth in my head for a while, to just go to the hospital and get it checked out and see, just make sure everything was okay. Once I got there, and this was at 32 weeks, they said I was about 2.5 centimeters dilated and I was in labor, which of course is not the greatest thing at 32 weeks only. So they went ahead and gave me some medicine, I think it was magnesium or something, to stop my contractions. They gave me some fluids to help in case I was dehydrated or anything like that. And within a couple hours, my contractions had subsided, and I was sent home, and I was feeling perfectly fine, although I was at 2.5 centimeters, which is a little much for only 32 weeks. Also, I had tested positive for Group B strep at this point. So if you don't know much about Group B strep, it's fairly common. A lot of women do test positive for it, but it's a bacteria that's inside your body that you're used to. But if a baby's exposed to it, they're not used to it. It will, you'll be on antibiotics when you're giving birth, but by being dilated, you're kind of exposing the baby to that, so it's not the best to go a super long time being dilated when you have Group B strep, or any other time as well. So anyways, at 32 weeks, they had stopped and everything was fairly normal. Then at about 36 weeks, I started having the same feelings again. It felt like real contractions, not Braxton Hicks. That night, I was in quite a bit of discomfort. I didn't quite feel right, but I decided I was going to wait it out because I didn't want to get to the hospital and be nothing. I hated going in and bothering them, You feel so stupid when you go in and it's nothing. So that morning, my husband left for work, and I told him it was completely fine. I was just going to wait it out, but it started getting more intense, so I did end up driving myself to the doctor or to the hospital just to get checked out again in labor and delivery. Once I got there, they told me that I was about 3 centimeters dilated and I was having very normal contractions. This was at about 36.5 weeks actually, and they had said that since I had been dilated since 32 weeks and since I was already progressed to 3 centimeters, I was having very regular contractions and they had already had to stop them once. They said, go ahead and call your husband back from work and tell him that you're having a baby today. So I called my husband. I told him that we are having a baby today. It took him about 2 hours to get back from work, and by the time he had gotten back, the contractions had completely stopped again. The reason that this had happened was because when my contractions were starting, it was when I was up and about and able to walk and get things to progress. When my contractions would stop, it was when they would tie me to a bed and couldn't keep up and moving, was hooked up to monitors and IVs and fluid and all that stuff, and it would stop and stall out the labor again. So by the time he had got 2 hours back to the hospital from where he worked, they were already ready to send me home because the contractions had stopped. And I felt so dumb because I called my family and I called him and I was so excited. I was going to have a baby that day. The nurse literally told me, call your husband and tell him you're having a baby today. And I was so excited, but it turned out to be nothing, or it turned out to stop. Then I went to the doctor around 38 weeks, and what she told me was that I was having, I think it's called prodromal labor. I'm probably not saying that right, but I'll put the name below if I can find it. And it's basically where it's a slow labor, could be lasting for several weeks, and you are in labor, but it's slow and it's not progressing. You're not you're not moving far in your labor. You're not making much progress, but you are in labor. So that's what she said I had. At about 38 weeks, I was 3.5 centimeters dilated. So I had been dilated since 32 weeks. She then told me that the farthest they would let me go past my due date is about 10 days. But because I was dilated and I had the group B strep, she didn't want me to go past my due date much at all because of the chance for the baby to get an infection. My due date was October 27th, and we decided that we would schedule an induction for October 31st in case we needed it. So that would be 4 days after my due date instead of the 10 days. So we did schedule the induction for Monday, October 31st at 6 a.m. just in case I needed it, and I did. So we woke up that Monday morning. We had to be to the hospital at 6 a.m. and I was not all for induction. I was a little nervous. It wasn't an induction because I was just 4 days past my due date. It was an induction because of this continual prodromal labor, my body not getting itself started. I had tried lots of other things, trust me. I had tried walking like crazy. I would walk miles, and it didn't do anything except make me sore and tired. I tried all sorts of other stuff. I had had my membrane stripped, tried all sorts of crazy things to try to get it kick-started or to continue, but it just didn't work. So I'm not one of those people that is like induction happy or anything like that. I wanted a completely natural birth, but I was induced. So we went in at about 6 in the morning. By 7 o'clock they started Pitocin, and I was at about 3.5 to 4 centimeters. By about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I started to feel my contractions. Before then, I could see them showing up on the screen, but I honestly could not feel them. But they weren't painful. It felt uncomfortable, but not painful. And I was scared to death, as a lot of women probably are, because I'd heard that Pitocin causes terribly strong contractions and unbearable. You have to, be just crazy in pain, or you're going to be so miserable, But that was not the case for me at all. I can honestly say I was never in excruciating pain. I was uncomfortable, and I was experiencing discomfort, but I never cried. I never got to the point to cry because it hurt so bad. I never screamed or yelled or cursed or anything like that. It was honestly less painful than what I was imagining. So I feel like I was able to completely handle the pain, and that was with Pitocin and being induced. So I would imagine that it would have hurt even less if I hadn't been induced. That's what I would think. But anyways, so I started feeling them around 3 o'clock, but I was still completely fine. I had my family in there, or it was me, Aaron, his mom, and my mom, and we were all in there. We were watching TV, hanging out. I was actually really enjoying the time to just lay down and watch TV and relax. Me and Aaron were getting to hang out. He had obviously the day off of work, so we were just getting to spend time together, and it was just really nice. It was really relaxing. It was fun to be able to spend a day with him and not have to worry about him going to work or anything like that. It was just really nice. But they wanted me to progress a little faster, so by about 5:30, my doctor came in and broke my water. This was the most uncomfortable that I got during the entire experience. It wasn't awful. It wasn't, unbearable, but it was pretty uncomfortable when she broke my water. And I think also my anxiety started to kick up a little bit then, because I realized she just broke my water, I am having this baby for sure now. Anyhow, so she broke my water, and that was, the most uncomfortable that I got the whole time. It was odd feeling. It was pretty uncomfortable. I think she broke it with something metal. I didn't see what she was using, but that's just kind of weird. feeling. Anyways, once she broke my water, I progressed pretty fast. It was still my mom, Aaron's mom, and Aaron in there. We were just watching TV, hanging out. The contractions did start to pick up, but they were still nothing unbearable. I wasn't, crying. I could handle them. It's funny because when I was talking to a nurse one time, she told me before I ever went into labor, don't come to the hospital until you can't talk through your contractions. And I was like, oh, wow, that sounds like I'm going to be in a lot of pain if I can't talk through them. But I never got to the point where I couldn't talk through contractions. I was talking through every contraction. I was focusing on TV through every contraction, I never got to the point that they were bad enough that I couldn't talk. And I guess everybody experiences it different. I was apparently a lucky one. So anyways, the doctor came in, I believe, after she broke my water around 6 o'clock and checked me, and I was at 10 centimeters and ready to push. Although I did not feel ready to push, I didn't want coached pushing. I wanted to feel it. So she said, well, we'll let the baby labor down for a little bit, which basically means just letting the baby move itself down through the birth canal and letting the baby do some of the harder work for you. So I said, okay. So she said, well, we'll let the baby labor down, just relax and take some time. So I went on Facebook, I checked people's statuses, I updated mine with my labor updates and everything, and I just relaxed. And I started to feel some pressure then, and it still wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but it felt like I had to go number 2. Is basically what it felt like. So I told her, it feels like I have to go number 2. I think I need to start pushing. So she kind of showed me how to push. We did some practice pushes. She told me, push when you feel a contraction starting, and don't stop pushing until your contraction's done. She showed Aaron how to look on the monitor and see when my contraction was about to start and everything like that. So it was really fun. And I started pushing. I pushed about 4.5, 5 times, and she came out. So it was just really easy. Everything was completely fine when she came out. It took her a while to start crying, which of course is like every mom's worry, why aren't they crying? But she was completely fine. I did not rip or tear. I had no episiotomy, so no stitches down there or anything. After they cut the cord, the doctor gave her to me, laid her on my chest, and the nurses rubbed her, so she started crying, and then she started breastfeeding right away. And then that was when I delivered the placenta while I was breastfeeding her. She was 5 pounds 15 ounces, so just under 6 pounds and overdue. So she was really small, 19 inches long, and everything was completely perfect. She was born at 7:38 p.m. And after that, everything went really smooth. We stayed in the hospital for 3 days. I didn't have any postpartum complications. I feel like I was just so blessed. I had the easiest labor and delivery. I had, as close to an all-natural delivery as you can when you're having an induction, It was not all-natural, of course. It wasn't non-medicated because it started off with medication right off the bat, but I just enjoyed it. It was just an enjoyable experience. It's the greatest memory ever to look back on. If my next labor goes as well as this one, I will be so, so happy. Of course, I'm not aiming for an induction this time. It'd be really nice not to be induced and to just experience the surprise of labor. If I am induced, I'm not going to be scared about it. If any of you out there are about to be induced because of medical reasons and it's what's safest for you and your baby, just know that Pitocin is not the devil, like some people say. For some people it can be, I'm sure, but for me, I was induced with Pitocin, and if it did make my contractions stronger, they were still completely bearable, and I had a very enjoyable birth experience, a lot more than other people who I know that were not induced. So yeah, like I said, I'm not aiming for an induction again. It's not my goal or anything like that, but if it happens or has to happen for the safety of the baby, then it has to happen. If you guys have any other questions about like how my labor and delivery went, how my postpartum recovery went, or anything like that, you can go ahead and let me know down below. I'd love to answer your questions for you. I am sorry about that noisy toy in the background. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye, guys.